Welcome to the Video Professor's Computer Learning Series on CD-ROM. This is the same great lesson that is found on our videotapes. This CD lesson window will always play on top of any application, so you can follow along step by step to learn the program. We have packed this CD with information and sometimes move at a pace that is faster than you'll be able to follow along with. To help you with this, we have designed the CD to work just like a VCR. You can pause, rewind, or fast forward the CD to learn each part just by clicking the appropriate buttons. From the Table of Contents menu, you can select or review any part of this lesson instantly. For your convenience, a Video Professor icon has been added to your desktop. To view this or future lessons, simply put the CD in your drive and click on this icon to start that lesson. Now, to get started, simply click on the menu item you want to learn. For best results, we suggest you start at the first item and work your way through to the end. And welcome to my second lesson on Lotus 123 version 5 for Windows, the popular spreadsheet program that makes home and business accounting jobs a snap. In my introduction lesson on Lotus 123, we learned how to do basic skills such as entering and editing labels. We also learned how to create and copy formulas, save a Lotus file to disk, plus format and print the spreadsheet. This lesson will build on those skills, so it is important that you know how to do them. If you don't, I suggest you see my tape, Learning Lotus 123 version 5.0. Because Lotus 5 works within the Windows and DOS environments, it is important that you understand how to work within them too. You should understand the difference between an application window and a document window, and how to manipulate the size of both. You should also understand how to use your keyboard and mouse to select options within pull-down menus and dialog boxes. And you should have a basic understanding of DOS and its conventions. If you don't, I strongly suggest you see my tapes Learning Windows and Getting Started with Your Personal Computer before starting this lesson. To get these results, you'll need Lotus 123 version 5.0 for Windows already installed on a computer with at least 4 megabytes of system memory. Your system should have a working keyboard and mouse. A printer is recommended, but not totally necessary to get the benefits of this lesson. The commands given in this lesson will be a mixture of mouse and keyboard actions and are the ones I believe to be quicker or more appropriate for a given situation. A mouse allows greater freedom to create and manipulate charts and their elements. Plus, there are some Lotus 123 tools that are mouse-only commands, so I strongly suggest you have one connected to your system for this lesson. Now, before we start the lesson, I'd like to introduce my student assistant, Suzanne. Just follow along with her, and you'll be using this program in no time at all. Later in this lesson, we'll save our work to disk. Suzanne will save her work to a floppy disk to avoid cluttering up her hard drive. I suggest that you, too, have an empty, formatted diskette on hand to save your Video Professor results. Okay, everyone, at this point, I'm going to assume you have your computer up and running with the Windows Program Manager open and active on screen. If you haven't done this, stop the tape and do so at this time. Within the Program Manager, open up the group window that contains the Lotus 5 application icon. Once the group window is open on screen, double-click on the Lotus 123 version 5.0 for Windows application icon. It should look like the one you see on screen now. Before we enter any numbers, labels, or formulas into this worksheet, let's be sure everyone has the same tools displayed and essentially the same screen view. Pull down the View menu and select Set View Preferences. Within this dialog box, everyone should have X's in each checkoff box as you see on our screen. You'll remember from my introductory tape that an X in an option box means that the option is active. Click in any empty boxes to add that item to our screen view. Also, make sure that Standard appears in the window next to the Worksheet Frame option. And in the Custom Zoom window, make sure that 87% appears in that window. If it doesn't, click on the option arrows until 87% appears here. When you have all these set, click on the OK button. Now open the Tools menu and select Smart Icons. Lotus has a number of pre-made toolbars to choose from. For this lesson, let's select the basic Default Sheet toolbar. If you have something other than Default Sheet selected in this option window, click on the drop-down list arrow, then click on the Default Sheet option. Use the scroll bar if needed. With that done, check the position box on the right side of this dialog box. If top doesn't appear in this window, use the drop-down list to select this option. One last thing before we leave this dialog box, make sure the Show Icon Descriptions option in the lower right corner of this dialog box is active. If there isn't an X in this checkoff box, click on it now. I think that will do it, Suzanne. Click OK to close this dialog box. Now we should all have the same tools and placement of those tools on screen. Suzanne, did you know that the 1, 2, 3 in Lotus stands for the 3 types of tasks you can perform with a spreadsheet? The first is the worksheet number crunching that we learned in the introductory lesson. The second is charts and graphs, which we'll see in this lesson. And the third is data operations, which will be featured in the Level 3 lesson. All these tasks base their operations on data within a spreadsheet. So the first thing we need to do is build a spreadsheet with appropriate data. Once that is done, we'll have a base from which we can create charts and graphs. To help illustrate this connection, we'll tackle a common business problem, deciding whether or not to add another product into the mix. Our business will be a curbside lemonade stand. The proprietor of this small business venture has noticed that coffee and espresso seems to be the current rage among her target market. So she's thinking about adding these 2 new products to her basic product mix of lemonade and iced tea. The problem she faces is a good example of the kind of what-if analysis that spreadsheets are great for, testing out some numbers to see if a business idea might fly. Okay, everyone, let's use Lotus to help her make a decision. The first step we'll take is to enter a brief description of this spreadsheet's purpose or contents. Suzanne in cell A1 enter Video Professor Lesson 2 - Product Mix Analysis. It's a good idea to enter some spreadsheet documentation for every spreadsheet. It can tell us what the spreadsheet is about and help distinguish like spreadsheets from each other. When you finish, press the down arrow to move down to cell A2. In this cell, we'll add a date to this file. Click on the @ button on the edit line. This drop-down list displays a short list of the most frequently used @ functions within Lotus. We want the @today command, so click on that choice to write that function on the input line, then press enter.
Professor, I thought this was supposed to give a date. What's this number?
It is a date, Suzanne, but right now it's written in Lotus time, which uses a special counter. We simply need to change the format to show this date in human time. Move your mouse pointer into cell A2 and click the right mouse button. Here's a shortcut menu of common commands. We want to change the number format, so click on that choice with the usual left mouse button this time. This number format dialog box gives a long list of formats for different types of numbers. Currency, dates, and scientific are some of the ones showing at the top of the list. Our number is a date, so click on that choice on the list, Suzanne. And a second section appears showing a variety of ways to display dates. I think the month/day/year format will do, so click that choice. In the lower right corner is a sample of how our date will display in the active cell. Viewers, note that yours will be different from Suzanne's because the @today function uses the computer's system date, so yours will show the date that you are actually creating this spreadsheet. Click OK to close the dialog box and apply this format to the cell. Now we know in a glance what this spreadsheet is about. I believe that this kind of file documentation is a very good habit to develop, especially when it's so easy. Now let's build the basic structure for our worksheet. Click in cell B3 and type Lemonade Plus for the name of our business. When you finish, press your Enter key. Now, while this cell is still selected, click the bold button to make this title bold. Before we go any further, I want to give you a little more information on this lesson's project. For our analysis of Lemonade Plus, we won't be dealing with startup and fixed costs. We'll keep things simple by concentrating on its ongoing operations and projected sales to decide if the new product seems profitable in the long run. We will look at projected sales and estimate the revenues and expenses for those sales. We'll start by entering some sales projections for a year, quarter by quarter, with a breakdown by product. Click cell B4 and type 1, a space, and QTR. Press your Enter key when you finish. Now drag across this cell and the next three to mark the range B4 to E4. We'll fill in the second, third, and fourth quarter headings automatically. Pull down the range menu, Suzanne, and select Fill by Example. See, it's done faster than I can talk about it. Now let's list the products in column A. Click on cell A5 and type lemonade, our mainstay product at the lemonade stand. Press the down arrow and type iced tea in cell A6. Press the down arrow again. In cell A7, type coffee, one of the proposed new products. When you finish, press your down arrow key, and in cell A8, enter espresso. Good. We now have labels for 4 products and appropriate areas in which to enter their projected quarterly sales. We'll want to have a total for each product, so select cell A9 and enter total. And then click in cell F4 and type total again. We should add the totals for each product too. Now, Suzanne, our lemonade entrepreneur has done exhaustive market research to come up with these projections. So all we need to do next is to fill in the numbers that she developed. These are estimates in gallons of product served. In the first quarter, from top to bottom, 10, 5, 15, 5. In the second quarter, 30, 15, 15, 10. Third quarter, 50, 25, 5, 15. And fourth quarter, 25, 20, 10, 25. Follow the chart on screen and pause or rewind the tape as needed to fill in these numbers. That takes care of our raw data. Now we can write some formulas to get the totals by quarter and by product. I'll show you a quick way to write this summing formula and 2 quick ways to copy it. Click in cell B9, Suzanne, where we want to have a total for the first quarter sales. Now point your mouse at the 1 plus 2 equals 3 smart icon. And the balloon tells us this button will sum values above or to the left. Sounds like what we want, so click on this button. There's the answer in cell B9. Look at the edit line, Suzanne. There's the formula that produced this answer, at sum B5 through B8. As I illustrated in the introductory lesson, this formula follows the standard at function formula structure. It starts with an at sign to indicate a function, then the name of the function, sum in this case. And finally, inside the parentheses are the variables used by the function. In this case, it's the range of cells to be added together. That's a good formula. You could check it with a calculator to be sure, which is sometimes a good idea if you're writing long and complicated equations. Let's copy this formula for the second, third, and fourth quarters. Drag across this cell and the next 3 to mark B9 through E9. Pull down the Edit menu and select Copyright. We now have the total projected sales for each quarter.
Why did we use copyright this time instead of the fill by example that I used for the quarter headings?
That's a good question, Suzanne, because it's important to understand the difference between those 2 commands. They're very similar in many ways since you mark a range and then something gets put into that range. The copyright command actually made a copy of the formula within the active cell, then pasted that formula into the new cells. As Lotus did this, it adjusted the cell addresses in the copied formulas to reflect the formula's new position and the cells it should calculate. This is called relative cell addressing, and we'll hear more about this as the lesson progresses. The fill command creates a series based on the data within the active cell. When you use the fill command in the quarter headings, Lotus created a series changing the 1 to a 2, 3, and 4 for each quarter. In business use, many series are built around time cycles. Other series examples are January, February, March, etc., or Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or 1995, 1996, 1997. We'll be using the copy and the fill commands again in this lesson, so keep an eye out for the differences. We'll use another version of the copy command now to calculate the totals for each product. Click in cell F5 to start, then click on the 1, 2, 3 Sum Smart icon. We now have the total projected gallons for lemonade. Let's check the edit line to see this formula. Looks good. It's adding cells B5 through E5. Now click and drag down to select cells F5 through F8. And with your mouse pointer in the selected range, click the right mouse button. Here's our shortcut menu again, and this time the copy down command shows up since we've selected a down range. This is the same copy command that we saw earlier on the range menu. When you mark a left to right or horizontal range, you get the copy right command. And for a vertical range, you get the copy down command. Click on the copy down option. Remember when you're using the shortcut menu that the right mouse button opens the menu, but the left mouse button selects a command, just as it does from the regular menus.
That shortcut menu is neat, Professor, as long as I don't get my fingers mixed up. Now, shouldn't I also have a grand total?
Good idea, Suzanne. I'll show you one more quick copying trick for that cell. We can use either the formula from above or the one from the left to add up the grand total. The answer should be the same from either direction. Let's use cell F8. Click in cell F8 to select just that cell. Then move your mouse pointer slowly in the cell until it turns into a little hand. Don't click yet. Now hold down your control key. Do you see the little plus sign in the hand? That means we will make a copy instead of a move. Still holding the control key, click the mouse button so the little hand closes, and drag the outline down to cell F9. Release the mouse button, and there's the grand total. This copying technique only works for a single cell at a time. The copy down and copy right technique can work for a whole range at once. Well, Suzanne, we've got some numbers. It's time to save this work, and then we can build some graphs. Suzanne, click on the Save icon. It has a picture of an arrow going into a file folder. Because we haven't named this file yet, we are given the Save As dialog box. Now either insert your floppy disk from the introductory lesson or a new formatted floppy disk into the appropriate drive. Once done, open the Drives drop-down list and select your floppy drive. To the left of the Drives box is the File Type box. Within it, make sure 123 is displayed as the file type. If it doesn't, open up the drop-down list and select it. Once that is set, click and drag across the generic file name in the File Name box and type in VP Graphs, just as you see on screen. That's all that is needed, so click on the OK button to save this file to disk. You'll notice that the new file name appears on the Windows title bar. Lotus added the WK4 extension, so this file will be identified as a Lotus work file. Now that we have all the projected sales data and totals for each product and quarter, we can analyze this information to draw comparisons and get an overall view of sales trends. And one of the best ways to do this is to turn this information into a simple-to-read chart or graph. We could add a chart to the existing worksheet page, but for organizational purposes, we'll add another worksheet page to keep our charts and graphs separate from our data. You can add additional pages to this worksheet file and then put different kinds of information on each page. For example, one page in this file might be used for the best case scenario of coffee and espresso sales, and another to look at the worst case, so a business planner can anticipate different contingencies and prepare appropriate strategies. Just below the Smart Icons row is the Worksheet tab area, where we see Tab A on the worksheet we're currently using. This row of tabs can be removed from view either through the Set Preference dialog box or by clicking on the icon at the far right side of the Tabs area. This icon looks like a series of file folder tabs. Click on it. Now the tab row has disappeared, but the tab button that you just clicked remains in view. Removing the tabs from view allows us to see more of the worksheet page while we are working. Click on the tab button again, and the Page tab reappears. Just next to the Tabs button is the New Sheet button. Click on that button, Suzanne, and a new blank worksheet appears with Tab B showing in the tab row. There's also a B in the gray corner where the column letters and row numbers intersect. This corner displays which worksheet page is active and on screen, even if the tab view has been turned off. A click of the New Sheet button is all it takes to add a page to the spreadsheet. You can also give the pages names that are more meaningful than A or B. Double-click on the B tab, Suzanne. A space opens up on the tab and a flashing cursor appears within it. This allows us to write a name on this page tab. Since we're going to put the charts on this page, type Charts and press Enter. The tab now says Charts, but the letter B still appears in the upper left corner of the worksheet. The B will continue to be part of the cell address that identifies cells from this page. Look at the cell address at the left of the edit line. It says B:A1. So the active cell right now is A1 on page B. The alphabetic name B in this case tells us what order this page was added to the worksheet file. Double-click on the A tab, Suzanne, and type Data. Notice that when you click on the tab, that page moved to the front of the stack. Press Enter when you finish. Okay, everyone, we're back at the data page, so we're ready to create a chart that will really bring these numbers to life. With a chart, you may be able to recognize trends or patterns that you wouldn't necessarily see in the spreadsheet numbers. In this program, charting is a very simple four-step process. Mark the data range including appropriate labels. Select a space for the chart. Choose the appropriate chart type. Add title and other formats as needed. We need some data to base our chart on, so drag across the range A4 to E8 to mark the sales data and labels, but leave out the totals for this first chart. Click on the New Chart Smart icon at the right edge of the bar. As you move your mouse back into the workspace, you can see that the pointer symbol now looks like a small chart. A message in the title bar advises us to click where you want to display the chart. We want our charts to be on the New Chart page, so click on the tab to switch pages. And then click and drag across the range B3 to D11. When you release the mouse button, we are given a chart. We are given a bar chart because that's the default chart type. For this set of data, a bar chart seems appropriate, but as we'll see in a moment, it's very easy to change this into another chart type.
Professor, the information within the chart seems a little crowded. Can we do something about that?
Yes, we can, Suzanne. It's really easy to change a chart size. But before we do that, let's modify some of the pieces within the chart area. Once we finish this, it will be easier to judge just how large the chart area should be. One thing to always remember when creating a spreadsheet or chart is that sooner or later someone besides yourself probably will need to interpret that information. We made the spreadsheet more identifiable and readable by entering spreadsheet documentation, proper headings, and labels. We now need to do the same for our chart, and we'll start by giving it a title. Move your mouse pointer slowly around the chart area. Notice that the black dot below the arrow changes shape as it moves in and out of the various elements or placeholder boxes within the chart area. The pointer is sensing the chart elements and will allow you to modify any of these elements when you click on it. Now move your mouse pointer into the placeholder box that displays the word Title. When we do, the dot changes to an A. The A indicates that clicking on this chart element will allow us to modify the text within that area. We already have a title on the chart, but I don't think the word title is very informative, do you? Double-click your left mouse button within this text box so we can modify this text. The Headings dialog box allows us to create and control 2 lines of title and 2 additional lines of notes if needed. There are 2 ways to enter text into these boxes. We can type text directly into the box or copy text into them. Let's do a copy. We have the title Lemonade Plus on the data sheet, but did not include it in the range selected for the chart. Let's point to the cell in the worksheet and have it copied into the chart. Click on the cell box at the far right of the first text box. We want our text copied onto this line. Now click on the range symbol in the corner of the text box. The open rectangle we saw earlier allows us to select and modify data within the selected area. The dialog box temporarily disappears to give us a clear view of the work area. Click on the tab for the data sheet and click on cell B3 where it says Lemonade Plus. Here's our dialog box again, and now line 1 says Data, B3. The contents of that cell will be copied into the chart as the first line of the chart title. Press Tab twice to move down into line 2 and type in 1995 sales projections. The placement options just below these two-line boxes will set the title lines to left, center, or right alignment. The center button should be selected. If it isn't, click on its radio button to select it. I don't believe this chart needs any notes, Suzanne, so click OK to close the dialog box and see the changes in our chart.
The title is covering up some of the other stuff, and the data bars look awfully small compared to everything else.
I guess it's time to do some resizing, Suzanne. Move your mouse pointer to the square at the lower right corner of the chart slowly until the pointer changes to a four-sided arrow. This is the sizing symbol. Now click and drag that corner over to cell G16. Let's see if that improves the view. Much better. Now I can also see two other small adjustments to clarify the information in this chart. Do you see the labels for X-axis and Y-axis? Like the earlier box for title, these are placeholders, and we can substitute the proper descriptive information. The X-axis label is usually words describing the data across that line. In this chart, I believe the quarterly labels give enough information, so we'll just delete the text box placeholder. Click once on the word X-axis, Suzanne, to select the text box, and press the delete key. The Y-axis almost always has some units of measurement. In this case, it's 20, 40, 60. That gives us the scale for the chart. But we don't know if these are dollars or gallons or what. So a title on the Y-axis would make this chart more informative. Double-click on the Y-axis placeholder, Suzanne. The dialog box gives us very precise control over the display if we wish to change the scale or interval markers. I think this program did a very nice job of scaling, so we'll leave these settings as is. However, I do think we should change the axis title to tell what unit of measurement the chart is displaying. The title text box is already highlighted, so type gallons. And click OK to return to the chart. Nice work, Suzanne. We can see that lemonade is the mainstay for this little business. But look at the growth in the espresso sales. I think that new product might really take off. The bar chart makes it very easy to compare products in each quarter, and we can also see something of the trends between quarters. Suzanne, our first chart was pretty easy. We marked the data and labels, which were all arranged together in the spreadsheet. Now, let's try something a little more complex. We'll make a pie chart that illustrates the proportional sales for each product. Click the Data tab, Suzanne, to switch back to the worksheet. The two ranges of data that we want to chart are in two different areas. In earlier versions of Lotus, selecting these ranges without selecting everything between them would be a big pain. However, in this version, it is quite simple. First, mark the range A5 to A8 to capture the product names. Now press and hold the Control key and mark the range F5 to F8. The Control key allows you to highlight sections that aren't touching and still work within them as a whole. Now that the labels and the data range are marked, Suzanne, click on the New Chart button and then click on the tab to switch to the Charts page. And once it is on screen, click in cell B18 and drag down to E31. The worksheet will scroll down as you drag to open up some clear space. When you release the mouse button, there's the chart.
But Professor, I thought you said we were making a pie chart. This is a bar chart.
No kidding. Remember that the bar chart is the program default. It's what we get automatically. But look at the Smart Icons bar now. There are some new tools up there, and one of them will turn your chart into a pie. Actually, two of them will make pie charts. Do you see the two pie chart buttons? The left one is a two-dimensional or a flat pie, and the other gives a 3D shaped pie. Just click on the button with the little shadow below the pie. And we have Instant Pie. While we're thinking about chart types, let's just take a quick look at some of Lotus's other chart options. A few buttons to the left of the pie icon is a button with 4 tiny little charts. Move your mouse pointer across to that one, Suzanne, and the balloon says that this will select a chart type. Click on that button. And here's a dialog box listing all the possible types of charts. The 3D pie button at the very bottom is selected since that's our active chart type. The two pies in the center offer choices for rotating the pie to control which piece is at the top. Click the XY button, Suzanne, and the center of the dialog box illustrates several variations on the XY type of chart. This is certainly a place that you'll want to spend more time exploring and experimenting. By doing so, you'll be able to find the chart type or variation that will convey your information in an effective manner. For now, however, just click the 3D pie button again, and then click OK to return to the chart. Let's quickly add a title to this chart so we can remember what it represents. Double-click the title placeholder, Suzanne. Line 1 should still be Lemonade Plus. Just type it in this time. Press your Tab key twice, and on line 2 type Projected Annual Sales, parentheses, gallons, close parentheses. Press on OK to place these titles into our pie chart. The pie chart clearly shows that more gallons of lemonade will be sold than any other product. It also shows us that of the proposed new products, projected sales for espresso is greater than those of coffee. It doesn't, however, give us any information on the revenues and costs associated with those projected sales. That's what we will look at next. So save your work, Suzanne. We're ready to do some what-if analysis. Product mix decisions are just one example of business strategy decisions where spreadsheet analysis is a tremendously powerful tool. In our project, we've been looking at gallons of product sold. These numbers give us a very general impression of how each product might fare in the marketplace, but they don't give us a real indication of the profit potential of each option. To do that, we must incorporate our sales numbers with information dealing with revenues and product cost. For our what-if analysis, we'll compare the profit potential of selling lemonade with that of espresso. We'll start our analysis by going back to the data sheet. Click on the Data tab to move back to the Numbers page, Suzanne. We're going to build another set of calculations on this worksheet, so let's add some documentation to the first set to set it apart. Suzanne, let's insert a row just below the Lemonade Plus title. Click on the number 4 in the gray row headers section. That's an easy way to mark this whole row as the place to insert a new row.
Professor, if I insert a row and move the numbers down, won't it mess up my chart?
A reasonable question, Suzanne, but no, the charts will be adjusted appropriately to keep their proper data ranges. Pull down the Edit menu and select the Insert command. In cell B4, enter projected sales in gallons. We need clearly defined variables, so this kind of documentation is very important in any spreadsheet, but it's especially helpful when you begin to do what-if analysis. And for our what-if analysis, we'll set up several variables and write the formulas to translate the projected gallons sold into dollars and cents. We'll just work with lemonade since it's the largest volume, and with espresso since it's the proposed new product with the best potential sales. With these two, we can compare the estimated profits, yet keep the lesson simple enough that you can concentrate on the important skills. First, we must identify the variables in the equations that will translate gallons into dollars and cents. The process is something like this. Each gallon of lemonade costs a certain amount to produce. From a gallon of lemonade, we can get a certain number of cups. Each cup sells for a certain amount of money. When we subtract the cost from the sales revenue, the answer is gross profit. There are some additional steps in the real-life equation, but this simplified version will do for our lesson. So, Suzanne, our variables are cost per gallon, servings per gallon, and sales price per serving. We'll list these in a section of the spreadsheet called Variables. Click in cell A13 and enter the label Variables. Once done, down arrow to cell A14 and enter Cost per gallon. In cell A15, enter Servings per gallon. And in A16, enter Price per serving. These are fairly long labels, so we'll put the numbers into column C for lemonade and D for espresso. Let's add those headers next. Click in cell C13 and enter lemonade. Then move to D13 and enter espresso. The cost of producing 1 gallon of lemonade will vary depending on the quality of ingredients used. For our project, we'll use an arbitrary cost of $5 per gallon. In cell C14, enter $5, 5.00. Of course, for a real business venture, you could review your expense records and come up with a reliable number based on real experience. In cell D14, let's enter $8.50 per gallon. Those coffee beans add up quickly.
Professor, my zeros keep disappearing. I think I need some formatting in these cells.
Yes, you do, Suzanne. Early in this lesson, I showed you the right mouse button shortcut for number formats. Let me show you another shortcut. First, drag across the range C14 to D14 to select the cells to be formatted. Now move your pointer to the lower left corner of the status bar where it says Automatic. The corner tells us what format is being used in the active cell. When you click on this corner, a list of format options appears. Roughly in the middle of the list is US dollar. Click on that line. There, your zeros are back along with dollar signs. The next variable is servings per gallon. Now we know that there are 16 measuring cups in a gallon, but a serving cup is a little different. A tall, icy lemonade will probably be a little more than 1 measuring cup, so let's say that we can get 12. That goes in cell C15, Suzanne. Espresso, on the other hand, is served in smaller quantities, so we might get 25 servings per gallon. Enter that number in cell D15. And finally, the price decision. Let's sell the lemonade, that's cell C16 now, for $1.50, and the espresso for $2. When you finish, select those last 2 cells, Suzanne. Then use the status bar shortcut to format them to dollars. Now let's add one additional format to make the list of variables stand out from the worksheet. Drag across the variables range, Suzanne, from cell A13 to D16. Once done, pull down the Style menu and select Lines and Color. In the Border section, click on the Outline option. Then open the drop-down list for Line Style and select a thick line. And click on the box for Designer Frame. When you have those settings, click on OK. Nice effect, isn't it? I believe it's time to save the file again. Suzanne, we have the elements for our what-if analysis. Now it's time to combine them. I think a little screen view management will make the process easier. Let's make room on the screen so a few more rows are visible. Pull down the View menu and select Set View Preferences. I believe a custom zoom of 75% will do the job, so click on the little down pointer next to the number box until the number counts down to 75. Then click on the OK button. Viewers, you may need to select a different zoom according to your screen size. You will need to see 5 or 6 additional rows below the variables. Now let's narrow the columns slightly so we can see a few more. Drag across the column headers to mark columns B through J. Now place the mouse pointer on any column divider until it changes to a 2-sided arrow. And click and drag to the left to narrow the column. Watch the left side of the edit line, Suzanne. When the column width reaches 7 characters, release your mouse. Now we'll set up a simplified income statement showing revenues, expenses, and net income. Start in cell A20, Suzanne, and enter the label Revenues. Below that, in cell A21, enter Expenses. And below that, in A22, enter Net Income. Now, across the top of this section, starting in cell B19, we'll put the quarter headings again. Type 1 space quarter, just as you did in the gallons chart up above. Do you remember how to fill in the series, Suzanne? That's right. Drag across all 4 cells. Then click the Range menu and select Fill by Example.
Professor, why didn't we use the copyright command?
We use the Fill by Example command because it creates a series. The copyright command would simply copy 1 quarter into the other cells without creating a sequential series. While that range is still marked, click on the Copy Smart icon. And once you finish that, click on cell F19 and click on the Paste Smart icon. Now we have two sets of quarters, one for lemonade and one for espresso. With that done, let's put some labels above each set. Click in cell B18 and enter lemonade. And in cell F18, above the second set of quarters, enter espresso. Now we know where things should go, so let's write some formulas. The first one will be revenues, which will be the number of gallons times the servings per gallon times the price per serving. Click in the first quarter lemonade revenue cell B20, Suzanne. Type a plus sign. Then click on the cell for first quarter lemonade gallons, B6. Type an asterisk, that's the sign for multiplying, which is the shift plus number 8 key. Then click on cell C15 for servings per gallon of lemonade. Now I want you to add something to this cell address. I'll explain in a minute, but just follow along for now, okay? Press the F4 function key. That adds dollar signs to this cell's address in the formula. Type another asterisk for the final multiply, and click on the cell for price per serving of lemonade, cell C16. Press the F4 key for this cell address too, and press enter. There you are, Suzanne. Our 10 gallons of lemonade will produce $180 in revenue.
Okay, Professor, I followed that. But what were those dollar signs in the formula for? They didn't show up on the answer.
Those dollar signs don't have anything to do with currency, Suzanne, but they do have a very important job. They tell Lotus to treat each cell reference surrounded by these symbols as an absolute address. Up to this point, we have worked with formulas that use relative cell addresses. So what is the difference between the two? Well, it is fairly simple. Absolute cell addresses always point to the same cell or cell range, no matter what, whereas relative cell addresses can change as new columns and rows are entered and do change within copied formulas. Let's take a practical look at the differences. Our earlier formulas contained relative cell addresses, so when we copy these formulas into new locations, Lotus changed the cell references to be relative to the formula's new location. Now, if we had had absolute cell addresses in these earlier formulas, then copy them to new locations, the cell references wouldn't change as they did with relative cell addresses. It may seem that relative cell addresses are handier to use than absolute cell addresses, but in reality, many of your Lotus formulas will need absolute cell addresses to calculate your work properly. And this formula is a good example of how each cell type works. We want the first cell, for gallons, to change as the formula is copied to a new location, so we left it as a relative cell address. We want the formula to always point to the servings and price cells, so we made those cell references absolute. Let's write the formula for first quarter expenses and for net income. And then we can copy these lemonade formulas to the other quarters all at once and see how the relative and absolute cell references actually work. Select cell B21. The formula for expenses will start with a plus sign. And we need to click on cell B6. It contains the number for gallons of lemonade sold in the first quarter. With that done, type an asterisk, then click on cell C14, the cell for cost per gallon. With that done, press your enter key. Great! This lemonade only costs $50, so we'll have a profit. In cell B22, start the formula with a plus sign. This is a simple subtraction formula. Click on B20, the revenues, and type a minus sign. Then click on B21. Press enter. First quarter lemonade profits are $130.
Professor, do I need any absolute reference dollar signs in this formula?
No, Suzanne, you want this formula to adjust as you copy it to all the other columns. It doesn't use any of the variables that need to stay constant in a copy. Let's copy this set of formulas to see how the lemonade business looks for the rest of the year. Drag across the range B20 to E22 to mark all 3 rows for all 4 quarters. Now click the right mouse button to get the shortcut menu and select Copyright. The numbers look pretty good, but can we trust them? Let's check a formula to be sure. and also to see how these absolute cell references worked in the copies. Click on D20, Suzanne. We'll check that big third quarter revenue number. In the edit line, we see D6. That's third quarter gallons, times C15, that's cups per gallon, times C16, that's price per cup. Good. It's a reliable formula. The relative cell reference to the gallons was B6 in the first quarter formula, and now it's D6 for the third quarter. The cell address adjusted itself to the new location as it was copied. But the two absolute cell addresses still point exactly to the lemonade servings and price variables. Now we just need to repeat the process for espresso. Ready? Select cell F20. Type a plus sign. Then click on B9, the first quarter espresso gallons. Add an asterisk. Then click on D15, the servings of espresso per gallon. Press the F4 key to make this an absolute cell address, then type another asterisk. And click on D16 for price per serving. Press the F4 key again, and press your Enter key. Well, look at that. We only sold half as much espresso as lemonade, but the revenues are more. This looks like a promising line of business. Let's check the expenses. In cell F21, type a plus sign, then select cell B9 again for gallons. Type an asterisk and D14 for the cost. Add the dollar signs with F4 and press Enter. We don't need to rebuild the net income formula. It's still the same regardless of lemonade or espresso. So go ahead and mark the range E22, where the last lemonade net income is, to I22, the end of the espresso range. Use the shortcut right mouse button to copy right. We are given zeros in the remaining cells because we're missing the revenue and expenses numbers. All we need to do is copy them into the appropriate cells. Mark the range F20 to I21 the revenues and expenses for espresso, and copy right with the right mouse button. Wow, Suzanne, look at the fourth quarter income for espresso. I'm beginning to understand why coffee shops are popping up on every street corner. But before we get too excited, let's double check at least one of the copied formulas. This is a good habit to develop, especially if you're making an important business decision based on the numbers they produce. Too often, we trust a spreadsheet's numbers without checking that they are calculated correctly. Click on the fourth quarter espresso expenses, cell I21, Suzanne. Now look at the edit line and trace through the formula with me. E9 is fourth quarter gallons of espresso. Good. And D14 is espresso cost per gallon. Looks okay. We've got some valuable data here, so let's save it to disk. Click on the Save icon or press your Control and S keys to save our changes to disk. Suzanne, the new information on the worksheet certainly looks interesting, but I believe a chart will give us a clearer picture of the projected revenues, expenses, and net income. This kind of data shows up best in a special kind of chart called mixed. This chart type combines features from line and bar charts. To create a mixed chart, we'll need to get behind the scenes a little further to see the way the chart routines work with data ranges. Suzanne, select the cell range A18 to E22. This range includes a title for the chart, all of the labels, plus all the dollar data for lemonade. Click on the Chart Smart icon, then click the tab for the Charts page. Use the vertical scroll bar to bring the bottom of the worksheet into view so we can see row 33. Once you have it in view, click and drag the chart point from cell B33 to E43. The screen view should scroll down further as needed when you drag the mouse. Once again, we are given a bar chart. You'll notice that it already has a title. It was automatically entered for us since it was included in the selected data range. Although a bar chart does give us an adequate visual comparison between revenues, expenses, and net income, I'd like to show you another chart that gives a better picture of the relationship among these numbers. Click on the Line Chart Smart icon, Suzanne. This gives a view of the changes over time from quarter to quarter, which is what a line chart is best for. Let's take the image one step further. Click on the Select a Chart Type Smart icon, Suzanne. In the dialog box, click on the button for Mixed. See how this chart combines a line, which we'll use for revenues, and bars, which we'll use for expenses and net income. Expenses and net income together add up to a total of revenues, so we'll use a stacked bar to illustrate that relationship. Click on the middle right sample and click OK to return to the graph view.
Professor, where's my line? This is all stacked bars. That's not what I asked for.
No, but Lotus doesn't know which of the three data series, revenue, expense, or net income, should be the line. So you have to tell it. Click on the chart menu and select ranges. This dialog box shows what happens when this program constructs a chart. In the middle of the box are the various data series used to construct a chart. X-axis, Series A, revenues, Series B, expenses, and Series C, net income. Click on the A revenues line, Suzanne. Below the series list is a box which says mixed type with a pull-down list. It says bar right now since the revenues are included in the stacked bars. Click the pull-down arrow and select line. Now click OK to see the change in the chart. There's your revenue line. Now it's clear that net income is several times larger than expenses, and that net income and expenses together add up to the total for revenue. Let's do the same thing for espresso, Suzanne. Click the Data tab to switch pages. Mark the range F18 to I22. This is just the data for the chart. We'll come back later to get the labels from column A. Click on the New Chart button and click the tab for the chart page. Once we're back on the chart page, scroll down so the lemonade chart is in view. And mark the range F33 to I43 for this chart. Here's our usual bar chart, but the legend just says Data A and so on rather than revenues, expenses, and net income. This is where we need to add labels. And we also want to make this a mixed chart like the one for lemonade. Click on the Select a Chart Type Smart icon and select Mixed and the center right sample. Then click on OK. Now to select the line, click the Chart menu and then select Ranges. In the series list, we know from the lemonade chart that data A is revenue, so select A. And with the drop-down arrow, change the mixed type to line. Click OK. Good. Now let's fix up that legend. Within the chart menu again, select Legend. This dialog box is similar to the one for ranges. Click on the All Ranges option in the series list. Notice that the legend entry text box now has the range symbol. Click on that symbol to activate the pointer. And click on the Data Sheet tab. Drag across the range A20 to A22 to mark the labels for this chart. Click OK on the dialog box, and the espresso chart is complete. Now we have two charts comparing the same variables for each product. You'll notice that the chart for espresso is slightly different. Its y-axis goes up to 1,500, while the one in the lemonade chart only goes up to 1,000. This should give you a hint as to which product is more profitable. That's right, the profits for espresso are much better than those for lemonade. Even though these two charts give us a good visual representation of our variable, we're not quite finished with our analysis of these two products. We could do this on a quarter-by-quarter basis, but let's summarize each into an annual total instead. First, save the file to safeguard the new work we've done. And with that accomplished, click on the Data tab, then scroll down the worksheet until the Variables section is at the top of the window. Drag across the labels in A20 to A22. And click the right mouse button to get the shortcut menu. Click Copy. Click in cell A26 to mark the corner of the paste area. Click the right mouse button again and select Paste. Click in cell B25 and enter lemonade. And in cell C25, enter espresso. These labels will serve to identify our new summary data. Now click in cell B26 so we can write a formula to add the 4 quarters of revenue. We used the sum function a while ago to total up the sales gallons. The sum values smart icon worked then because the answer went in the same row or column with the range of numbers. This time we want to put the answer in a different location from the range of numbers being added, so we'll need to use the @sum function formula. You could type in the @sum function, Suzanne, but it's easier and more accurate to get it from the function button on the edit line. Click on the @ button and select Sum, the second item on the pull-down list. The function now asks for the list of cells to be summed, so click and drag from cell B20 to E20. When you have that range selected, press your Enter key. Now we'll repeat that sequence to write a total formula for espresso revenues in cell C26. Click to select that cell. Once done, click on @sum function button and select the sum function again. Now drag across the range F20 to I20 to mark espresso revenues. And when you finish, press Enter. Since the relative positions of revenues, expenses, and net income are the same on the quarterly list as on the summary, we can copy the sum formulas down to calculate totals for expenses and net income. The relative cell addresses will automatically adjust themselves in the copied formulas. Mark the range B26 to C28, Suzanne. With your pointer still on the marked range, click the right mouse button and select the Copy Down command. While the range is still selected, click on the left corner of the status bar and select the US dollar currency format. Well, that's an interesting set of numbers, isn't it, Suzanne? Let's put it into a graph. Mark the whole summary from A25 to C28. And click the Chart Smart icon again. Click on the Chart tab to switch pages, then scroll down the worksheet until you see some clear space under the existing charts for this new one. With that done, use the chart pointer to mark from B45 to F56. The bar chart is a good choice here since it compares revenues, expenses, and net income for lemonade and espresso. It also gives us a little more accurate side-by-side comparison since both lemonade and espresso use the same y-axis scale. Let's add a title to this slice of heaven. Double-click on the title placeholder box. And within the first line of the headings dialog box, type Projected Annual Sales. When you finish, click on OK. We've seen several types of charts and have developed some behind-the-scenes skills for controlling a chart's appearance. Now let's take a look at the power of this spreadsheet tool for business planning. Before we do that, Suzanne, press the Control and S keys together to save these changes to disk. The worksheet and charts right now show a pretty strong net income because expenses are fairly low. But what if there's a sudden rise in the price of coffee beans? Well, we built our spreadsheet to handle changes like this, so let's see how it handles this scenario. Suzanne, let's increase the price of espresso beans to see what effect this will have on profit projections. First, click on the Data tab. We start the what if process by recording the change in the cost of the espresso on the variables worksheet. Cell D14 tells us that this set of figures are built around a cost of $8.50 per gallon for espresso. The cost variable is then computed into the expense formula. So the first quarter expense is $42.50, then $85, and so on. The expense is subtracted from the revenue, so we have $207.50 in the first quarter, then $415, and so on. We can predict that if expenses go up, the net income will go down. So let's see what happens if the cost doubles. Click in cell D14 and enter $17. The new number will replace the old one. You don't need to erase the first. Press Enter and the espresso numbers on the dollar worksheet change instantly. We can see that net income is reduced as the expenses increase. Suzanne, I believe the revenue and expenses charts will give us an even better illustration of this relationship. Click the Charts tab to switch pages, Suzanne, and scroll down to see the revenue and expense charts. Notice that the nice blue net income part of the bar is smaller on the espresso chart, and the espresso numbers are only slightly higher than lemonade on the bottom comparison bar chart. But we still have positive net income, so don't get too disappointed. This is a very good example of just how quickly a properly constructed spreadsheet can respond to changing variables. It is so easy to use. We could check the effect of increasing or decreasing the price for each cup of espresso, Or maybe change the serving size and see what happens. Let's try one more what-if analysis just to see the effect. What if we reduced the sales price of lemonade and as a result we sold more gallons? Even though we didn't put the gallons in the list of variables, you can easily see that a change in price might affect the level of sales. Let's check it out. Click the Data tab to return to that sheet. Now click in cell C16 and change the price per serving to $1. A quick glance at the income numbers below shows that we can still make a profit at that price. So let's see how much we might make in additional volume. If the price is so low it makes a loss, then additional sales will only make a bigger loss. Click in cell B6 and change the sales gallons to 15 for the first quarter. Quantity is a factor in all the profit formulas, so when you type a new number here, everything for that quarter changes. Watch the second quarter results as you move over to cell C6 and enter 40. Of course, we're just making up numbers here to see the effect in the worksheet. For a real business decision, you would use the best research and your own good judgment to make these kinds of projections. Enter 70 into cell D6 and 35 into E6. The numbers adjust instantly to change in any of the variables, and the charts adjust to the new numbers just as quickly. Suzanne, click on the Charts tab so we can see these changes. Scroll on down to see the profit picture. The lemonade bars in the first chart are much taller now, and in the pie chart it has a larger slice of the pie. The third chart, however, shows lower revenues and net income due to the reduced price. And the bottom chart once again has profits for espresso towering over lemonade. It looks like we'll need to go back and adjust the sales price per serving and the volume of gallons sold to make lemonade a more profitable product. You may want to keep track of the different results as you change variables. You can print out the results before you change a number or copy the worksheet onto a new page for each time you want to change a variable. You can also add documentation to the page to explain how you came up with a number or what kind of change you have made. If you copy the original worksheet information to additional pages, you may need to adjust some of the absolute reference formulas so they don't point back to the original page. Well, we've seen a few what-if scenarios, and now we have the skills to create business planning spreadsheets, plus the tools and rationale to create effective charts. Feel free to come back and experiment with this spreadsheet. For now, there's only one thing remaining in this lesson, and that is to print our data and chart pages. In my introduction lesson, I taught you some basic printing skills. In this lesson, we'll build on those skills plus learn a few more as we can properly handle printing information from a multiple-page worksheet such as ours. Let's assemble the key results from our Lemonade Plus analysis into a summary report, Suzanne. We'll copy the key worksheets and charts to create a single-page report that summarizes our findings. First, we'll add another page to the file so we can have a clean worksheet to start with. Click on the New Sheet button to get page C, then double-click on the C tab and enter the label Report. Now click inside cell B1, Suzanne, and type in all caps Lemonade Plus. Once done, use your mouse pointer to make a range from cell B1 to G1. And when you finish that, pull down the Style menu and select the Alignment command. In the dialog box, select the Center option and then click inside the Across column box to activate that option. When everything is set, click OK. There, that gives a nicely centered page title. While the title is still selected, pull down the Style menu and select Font and Attributes. Within this dialog box, choose 18-point font size and bold in the Attributes section. Click on OK. Now let's copy the gallon sales data onto this report page. Click on the Data tab and drag across the range A4 to F10 to mark the data. Click the Copy Smart icon or use the right mouse shortcut copy command. And when you finish that, click on the Report tab and select cell B3 to mark the upper left corner of the copy space. Click on the Paste Smart icon to complete the copy process. With that done, let's copy and center the bar chart that illustrates these figures beneath them. Click on the Chart tab. Now click anywhere on the Sales Projections bar chart. Then click on the Copy button. Click on the Report tab and click in cell B11 and then click on the Paste button. Before we go any further, let's see how the summary page is shaping up. Click on the Preview the Print Selection Smart icon. That's the one that looks like a page right next to the printer icon. After doing that, click on the Current Worksheet button in the dialog box, then click on OK. This looks pretty good, and we have plenty of space on the bottom of the page to show the revenue and expense data. We'll include the variables and the net income figures to give a complete summary. Click the Close Smart icon, the one with the little window shade, to clear the preview. Before we add the next set of data, let's add a line of explanation to explain the transition from gallon sales projections to revenues, expenses, and net income. Scroll down to cell A26 and enter, "The following data was used to project revenue and expenses based on the above sales estimates." Once you have all that entered, click on the Data tab to switch pages and mark the range A13 to D16 to copy the variables box. Copy this information, then click on the Report tab. Scroll down this report page and paste this block of information into cell B28. Click the Data tab to switch back to the Worksheets page and scroll down till you can see the Revenue and Expenses summary. This data range poses a problem for copying because the numbers here are the result of formulas that use data outside of the range we want to copy. These numbers, if you recall, are sums of the quarterly projections just above. We didn't use absolute values to write those formulas. It wasn't necessary. But when we copy these to the report page, the formulas will point to different cells and give erroneous results. But never fear. There are actually two possible solutions to this problem. One is to write a linking formula on the report page that refers back to the data sheet. We'll explore that technique in the Level 3 lesson. For this report, we'll use a copying technique that will transfer the numbers correctly to the report page. Drag across the range A25 to C28. Then use the shortcut menu to copy this data. Click the Report tab and click in cell E33 to locate the copy. We'll offset it to the right to balance the variables box. Now for a special paste technique, pull down the Edit menu and select the Paste Special command. This dialog box gives several choices. The one that will keep our numbers intact on a new page is the last, Formulas as Values. Click that button and then click OK. There's our revenues and expenses data with the correct numbers. Click on cell F34, Suzanne, and look at the edit line. On the data worksheet, this was the formula that added the quarterly revenues for Lemonade. Here it is simply a number, but it's the correct number. However, it's important to remember that when you use this special paste technique, the copy will not change if you change the data on the worksheet. The dynamic link between the numbers has been lost. Just two more pieces on this report. Let's add another line to call attention to the importance of the lemonade and espresso data. Scroll down to cell A38 and enter Lemonade Plus sells more gallons of lemonade, but espresso shows a greater profit. And below this text, we'll place the chart that illustrates that statement. Now move back to the chart page and click on the last chart, the one showing projected annual sales. Press your right mouse button, then click on the Copy command. Move to the report page and click in cell B40 to position the chart. Once in position, click on the Paste Smart icon. Let's take another preview to see the whole page view. Click the Preview Smart icon and select Current Worksheet. That should do it, Suzanne. Click OK. It all fits nicely now. A click of the printer icon opens the usual print dialog box where you can change the printer or specify copies, etc. Click OK to make a paper copy of the report, then save the file. Nice work, Suzanne. I hope you enjoyed our Lotus 5.0 Level 2 lesson.